welcome to the Mindful of You podcast. This is episode 38, being a young parent with my mom. So I just finished actually interviewing my mom, Janice Thomas, about a lot of her life. I talked to her about being a mom and everything she's done in her life. I'm sure not everything, but many things. I got to learn some new things about my mom, and it was a really eye-opening experience for me, and I learned a lot. I hope you guys never listen to this podcast and think I know everything. I know I don't. I know that sometimes I can be a presumptuous 24-year-old, so it was really humbling and wonderful for me to have someone on the podcast who I love and admire, to not only teach you guys, but to teach me. So without further ado, here is my interview with my mom. Mom, thank you so much for being willing to come on my podcast today. I'm super excited to have you. I've just finished telling everybody how cool you are. We're going to learn a little bit more about how cool you are, but no pressure or anything like that.
You might have to
So,
define cool for me.
so I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be a mom and to be a woman, and kind of the experiences you've had throughout your life, being a parent, what it's been like and what you've learned and what you would want to pass on to, I guess, me or a younger version of you, kind of just starting some of these stages of life. So my first question is, at what age did you have your first kid?
I had my first kid at 19, and I I joke around with your dad, and we used to say that I was part of the teenage pregnancies statistic, which was kind of unfair because we were actually married when we conceived. So I felt like I was put in a group that I didn't belong in, teenage
Yeah,
pregnancy. But really, I was still a teenage pregnancy, even though I was married. But I was definitely very young and very inexperienced. But yeah, 19.
very cool. Did you plan to have kids that young? Or if not, did you ever think about, when you were going to have kids, or was it just kind of something you just thought would happen one day?
Uh, you know, I was, I never really planned a lot of things, which is probably a blessing and a curse, but I lived my life a little bit faster than most people because I finished high school at 16. I skipped a grade when I was younger.
Uh-huh.
So I finished first grade, and the teachers and everybody thought that I was really advanced. So they put me in third grade. So I went from first grade to third grade. So I was a 6 year old in third grade,
That's
which
crazy.
kind of forced me into like
Yeah.
acting like older kids and being older. Then I graduated high school at 16, started college right away. So got married at 18, but even though I was 18, I was already in college. So I feel like I was a little bit advanced in some way in life. But as far as what I thought and what I had planned, I mean, my plans were nothing like what happened.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really, like I thought I would go to college, I would date a bunch of people and have fun, and then I would find the one and I would get married, and then we would have kids, and I thought all of that would happen sometime in my 20s because that's
Okay.
what
Yeah.
most people did, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just kind of picturing the
Yeah.
stereotypical timeline of what you'd seen before. So do you feel like, I guess my question here is, what challenges did you face being a young parent? Do you feel like there were additional challenges being extra young, or was it just the normal stuff? Like, what kind of challenges did you face?
So, lots of challenges. I mean, not only did things happen differently, like what I thought would happen didn't happen. So it was kind of a shock. I got married at 18, had a baby at 19. I was not done with college. So it
Mm-hmm.
was just like everything was different. So I didn't really know I didn't really know how to be a mom. I mean, really, I watched my mom be a great mom. I had a lot of good mom role models and examples, but I knew nothing.
Yeah.
My first baby was in the hospital and she had to stay in the NICU for 10 days, so that was
Oh,
challenging.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah, I didn't get to bring her home right away. So that was really hard. And then I had no idea how to feed her. I had no idea how to even change a diaper. I never babysat before. So it was kind of shocking to have this little child be in my arms and me be in charge of it. Like the nurses had to teach me how to change a diaper. It's really
Wow.
embarrassing to think about. But she was like, the tapes go on the back. And I was like, okay. And then, I took her home and I was like, are you sure I can take this child home? Like, is she going to be
Like,
okay?
like, shouldn't you guys call someone? Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was like initially like as far as challenges go, that was like the main challenge. But you get really good really fast when you're doing something 24/7. Like you have no choice but to, by the third diaper I changed, I already knew how to do it. And
Yeah.
so those challenges were pretty easily overcome, I think. But then there was the challenge of, well, I need a babysitter now. I want to finish school. What am I going to do now? So my mom's not here. I grew up in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And so coming here and staying here meant that I was going to give up a lot of the grandma benefits that a lot of us have the
Mm-hmm.
blessings of having. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that. And it also was a challenge for my marriage because anything that we did, I mean, I was still working. I was still, no, and I wasn't working a lot. I just had part-time jobs here and there just to help, pay rent and things like that. But it just meant that anything I did would have to be on the opposite schedule as my
Right.
husband. So the flexibilities of remote work and stuff were not there before. So we
Right.
just had to make things work and we rarely saw each other. So that was a challenge. But
Yeah.
those were the things that I struggled with the most initially. I mean, it was all worth it, but the beginning was definitely really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I believe it. I I've thought about that before, how blessed a lot of us are now. Not everybody's in the position where they can work from home or anything, but there's definitely a lot more flexibility than there once was. There used to just be none. There was no way
There's a
to.
lot more choices now,
Yeah.
really, and that could be good and bad too, I guess. But and sometimes I think working from home has its challenges where you can't really leave work.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that, when you would go work at the shoe store, I worked at Payless Shoes a long time ago. I
Yeah.
would go do my work, straighten the shoes, and go home, and I was done with work. But now
And
we
you
have
weren't
a
like
lot of
laying in bed thinking about, man, did I straighten those shoes right? Like me, tempted to hop on my email and see like if that one student like said
yes.
something to me or something like that. It was just
Yeah,
like,
the
oh,
mental challenges now are definitely more
yeah,
than what we had back then. It was all
yeah,
logistical back then.
very cool. Well, okay, we've established a little bit about your education, how you weren't able to finish college before you had children, but you now, and I'm going to brag on you a little bit, but you now have a bachelor's, master's degree, PhD, what I consider to be a successful career. I hope you think the same thing. And four semi well adjusted kids, at least three. I don't know if I can call myself that yet, but at least three good ones.
Your brain's not
So
fully developed.
I know once I hit that frontal lobe next year, y'all are going to be like, whoa,
Blown away.
she's amazing. So, what do you feel like made it possible for you to accomplish this?
When you think about that, I always think when you look back at your life, it looks a lot more impressive than
Yeah.
when you think about what you're going to do in the future. I never had plans to get that much education, number one.
Mm-hmm.
That was not ever in the plans. I wanted to finish my bachelor's. That was my goal. And I
Yeah.
still think that should be everyone's goal if they want to do school, like a
Yeah.
lot of times, we go to school, go to school, go to school to put off life. But
Yeah.
I feel like a bachelor's degree gives you really good credentials, good education. And that was
Mm-hmm.
my goal. And I finished that when I was 30. Mind
Okay.
you, I started college at 17. So
Yeah. Just a cool 13 years.
Yeah, and I wasn't
Yeah.
going to school that entire time. I mean, I took a lot of breaks. I had kids, like life just I just had to put priorities first. And they never put on your diploma how long it took you to get that degree, which
No.
is nice. You just
No.
have it.
Well, and you, and I guess I should give our listeners a little bit of background if I haven't already. Like, you work in higher education, so you're a professor at Weber State. So you you've kind
Yes.
of stayed in that realm, right? To an extent.
Yeah, and I do work with a lot of young adults, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
why I say that a lot of times when, I have students that do tend to have plans to go to graduate school and do all these things, and the first thing I ask is why, why do you
Mm-hmm.
want to do that? And
Mm-hmm.
and that's really important. But my reasoning, I mean, I wanted to get a career, I wanted to get my degree. I finished it a little later than I thought, but I did finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was working during that time too. I did get an associate's first, which I was able to work. Then I took a break, then went back from a bachelor's. Uh, but my point is like circumstances changed in my life where the master's just came because it was an opportunity that I was able to get because I was working with students and I thought it was cool. And I'm like, oh, you'll pay for my degree? Okay. So as soon as I saw that opportunity, I would take it. I would take classes here and there. And same with my doctorate. It wasn't until I was working at the university that I decided maybe a doctorate was for me because they would pay for it because I would get a raise after I finished it. So I just saw those opportunities. So I just wanted to make that clear. That wasn't really my goal, and even if it was, it's fine. It's just it's not something that I thought made it or
Like,
would make or
you
break
weren't like,
my
I'm
life.
determined to make this happen no matter what
Right.
it takes. It was more
No.
just opportunities that came up for you.
Right. It was just more,
Mm-hmm.
why not? I don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And so I feel like well, some of the things that made it possible, number one, my husband, he's like the greatest, most amazing husband and dad anyone could ever hope for because
I think he's a good dad.
yeah, I mean, I think having a partner that really supports you in your goals, that supports raising your children with you, that it's not just there for when you need them. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
they're just there to actually be a 50-50 partner.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge. And I saw a lot of people around me that didn't have
Didn't
that,
have it.
that
Yeah.
they were 80% caregivers and 20% anything else they wanted to do in their life. Where
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunities to, have that because he was my support system. And then I mean, I have to give myself a little credit too. I feel like I was very tenacious. Once I decided to do something, it was really hard to get me to back out of it and
Mm-hmm.
quit. Like I didn't like quitting, still don't.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I start something and I commit to it, then I like to finish it
Yeah.
for whatever it's worth. So those two things I think were probably the biggest things that helped me get, to where I am as far as education goes.
Very cool. And what I think is interesting about your history with education is I meet with, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, like all of the ages, and everybody has some sort of story or thought around their age regarding their education. And to me, it does not matter how old you are when you come sit in my office. I don't, when I say I don't care, that sounds mean, but I really don't. There's still always more life to live and other goals to reach. And something I think you've said before, and I'm probably gonna butcher it, but something like time's gonna pass anyway. So
Absolutely.
what do you want to do with it? And like looking back, would you say like, oh dang, like if only I'd finished my bachelor's when I was 24, things would have been better? Like, do you have any thoughts like that ever?
No, and that's a great point too. I feel like things didn't turn out like I planned initially, but I think they turned out better. Like I never thought I
Yeah.
would have a child at 19. I didn't think I'd have four kids by the time I was 28. Like those things just I feel like God has a plan for you and sometimes that's not your plan. It's a
Mm-hmm.
better plan. And so if you are open enough to adjust and pivot to
Mm-hmm.
God's plan for you, I think he's going to open more doors than you ever
Yeah.
thought possible. And I never really think differently. I mean, I got my bachelor's at 30, my master's at 40, and my doctorate at 50. Like, I think it's really cool that, like,
It's
at
really
every
cool.
major decade, I had, a new degree, which, and I'm not going for any more. So
I know, and at 60, you're gonna get one that they haven't made yet.
I'm good with degrees. But anyway, and like I said, like I love that I was a young mom. I love that I have grandkids that I can do cartwheels and play with, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
be able to see them for a long time. Like that part I think is really amazing. Like I was able
Yeah.
to just take my time with school and take the turtle steps
Yeah.
instead of taking, the really fast. Because I mean, students just want to get done with school, and
Yeah.
they're like, I just want to get done, just want to. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I
we
just
can we
want
can
to
do a
do it.
separate podcast about
Yeah,
our gripes with that, but
and I get
I
it. But
know.
now looking back, it's like, oh, I just love that I had my kids when I did, and that school had to take a back seat, and I just had to
And
do
it
it when
was
I could.
and it was okay. Yeah. And
Yeah,
obviously you mentioned like how helpful it was to have dad and stuff there as your partner. Not everybody has that kind of support and not as many opportunities, which is hard. But I think a good lesson to learn here is just like you don't have to, if you're feeling like you have to jump to the next step or that you're falling behind, when you look back in 30 years or whatever, are you really going to see those couple years as like as crucial as you're seeing them right now? Because I really just don't think so. I don't.
you don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and like you said before, and I use that all the time with students. It's like 4 years is gonna go by no matter what you do, whether you sit back and do nothing or you pursue
Mm-hmm.
something. Um, some students that have come from other countries that have had to start over on their degrees because they can't transfer anything, like that's
Yes.
shocking. And that's
Mm-hmm.
usually when I use that, I'm like, well, where do you want to be in 4 years? Do you want to be
Yeah.
wishing that you had done this, or do you want to be there already?
Yeah. Do you want to
So,
be 3 years from now going,
mhm.
well, that's still what I want, so I guess I'll start now?
Right,
So,
totally.
very cool. All right. I'm going to move on to our next question. So, some women I've heard or may refer to themselves as just a mom, especially when they have kids at a younger age. What do you what do you think of that? Like women saying they're just a mom, or women choosing to stay at home with kids. What are kind of your thoughts?
Oh man, I can tell you right now what I think, and I think that being a mom is the best, greatest job you could ever do. Because looking back, my kids are grown, and I've seen
Mm-hmm.
what raising kids can do to me and my kids and the relationships. But I know when you're young, it feels like a trap. It feels like you can't really get anywhere because you have this little child that needs you 24/7.
Yeah.
So I get that part. And back then, I can tell you how I was back then. I was that person. I was that person that didn't want to be just a mom. I was that
Yeah.
person that wanted the career, that wanted to have the prestige, and I didn't, and it was more cultural than anything. I watched my mom have a career, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone I knew that was successful, and so that's what I did. But looking back, I think I could have taken things a little slower, even,
Mm-hmm.
and enjoyed being a mom more. And that's what I think everyone should do. I mean, that's what I would tell myself as a young mom today is there's plenty of time to work.
Yeah.
There's so many years in your life that you can dedicate to career and work and all of the other passions that you could have. Those really short years when your kids are small are so short, and they'll go by so fast. Pretty soon they'll be in kindergarten and they'll have after school gymnastics, and all of a sudden you're only spending 3 or 4 hours a day with them, and
Yeah.
that your day is done. So I don't know. I mean, I think I empathize with people that are like that. I think Utah is a better place to be as far as raising a family and feeling like, you have a noble job by being a mom. But I feel like you should embrace it. I feel like you should embrace it,
Mm-hmm.
embrace being a mom, especially when kids are really young, and recognize that that's your calling at the moment. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can, maybe do some of your passions on the side. I think it's important to kind of get away and recharge and do some things that make you feel human.
Yeah. Yeah. Make you feel like a
While you
person
can.
again. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think that's totally understandable and important. But I would never say that anyone should call themselves as just a mom. I think that it's a
It's
privilege.
yeah, it's huge. I mean, I I've expressed to you before and witnessed like my oldest sister is got four young kids, and it's the craziest, most admirable. Oh no, you said you were gonna cry. Now I'm gonna cry. But it's one of the most admirable things to see her sacrifice so much for her
Yeah,
kids. So
absolutely.
I'd never want somebody to think that what they do doesn't matter, because it matters a lot. And so,
Well,
so you
and
kind
on
go ahead.
just to add to that too, I feel like sometimes we say that we want the career and that we want other things because being a mom is freaking hard.
Yeah,
Like we might just think that we want this other thing because it's more prestigious, but to me, I was really scared to spend 24 hours a day in my house with these little people without
amen.
having them out. Sometimes taking the, taking the job or taking, the part-time job or the full-time job or pursuing other passions
Can
is
be
more like,
sanity. Yeah.
you're escaping the reality.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I think, and
absolutely.
I mean, I think kids appreciate it too when they have your attention as a mom as much as they can.
Absolutely. This next question says, I've heard and seen women who kind of lose themselves in motherhood, and you touched on this a little bit as well. And it seems like children become their whole lives for obvious reasons, and but they might feel lost when their children are grown. I've never seen you that way. Even when I was growing up, I was always like, my mom is my mom, and yes, when I call you, most of the time I expect you'll pick up. But I know you can't all the time because you have other things, like you're doing other things. And to me, I've always viewed that as a positive thing, that I felt like my mom, I don't want to say more than a mom because we just talked about how amazing that is, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like you've maintained a sense of identity, while still maintaining that identity as a mom. So, how do you feel like you did that? And was there a time in your life where it felt like motherhood was the only thing you could focus on?
Some of the things that we did, we tried really hard as a couple to have dates every week. So whether
Mm-hmm.
our kids were little or teenagers, we always would get a babysitter. Like, I think that's important to keep your relationship strong. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we met with a stake president once, and he told us that a family begins with two and ends with two. And
Yep.
so when you start your family and you have your kids, they're going to be your whole life, but then they're going to leave, and then there's going to be the two of you again.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
this is really what the family is the two of you. And so we did the very best that we could. We would hire babysitters even though money was tight. We used to say, joke and say that babysitters were cheaper than marriage counselors. So we would always find money to hire the babysitter and go to the movies and go out to dinner and just find time for ourselves. So I think that's super important for young couples out there who have the little ones, to find time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with losing yourselves in your kids. I feel like we were sort of that way. Yes, we had our jobs and everything, but we were very involved with all of you, with soccer, theater. I
Mm-hmm.
miss all of that terribly still. And I feel like now at this stage in life, I know I don't show it much, but it's hard to, like, I never planned for this stage of my life. You always
Yeah.
plan for the stage of your life when you're dating and getting married and having kids. That's, you just know that's coming. But then when that ends and your kids are gone, it's like, okay, well, now what? So that's been a struggle, and I still find things to do, and now I have new goals in my life and new things to do. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to have all the goals. I feel whether your kids are little or not, get the lofty goals out there, and you may do it now or you may do it 10, 15 years from now. But I
Yeah,
think
but
it's
to be
important
working
to have
towards
goals.
something. Yeah,
Yeah,
towards
to
something
have
that
goals
you care
outside
about.
of your kids. Have goals
Yeah.
outside of being a good mom and and work. Know that someday you're gonna get there,
Yeah.
and that way it's not all about the kids always.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. And when I wrote that question, I was like having a hard time phrasing it, and I think that the stake president phrased it really well, that you know, the family starts with two and ends with two, and like really it's a weirdly short time of life. That feels weird to say because like I haven't even begun that chapter of my life, but I already feel like it's gonna go by so fast. So it's weird.
Yeah, yeah, it really does go by faster. I mean, the days go by slow, but the years go by fast, is how I
Yeah.
like to say it. It's just sometimes you have a really long day when the kid just does not stop crying and you just think it's gonna be an endless day. But
I know sometimes
all
your
of a
20
sudden they're in kindergarten.
sometimes your 24-year-old still can't stop crying.
Sometimes.
Some days. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so I think yeah, you did a good job at covering a lot of the things I wanted to talk about. So I'm just gonna ask, like, do you have any last, thoughts about any of the things that we've talked about, or anything you'd like to say to, you know, my friend Taylor, I serve my mission with. Sometimes she listens. She's got a 4-year old, I think. Oh, she's probably not 4 yet, maybe 3. And then she is probably literally about to have one as we speak. She's like super pregnant. So like, if you were to talk to somebody like that, what would your thoughts be for them?
Oh, I would probably say these are the years that are you're gonna remember the most. I would probably say to be open to change, to be patient, and like your dad always tells you, to be a leaf. I had days when my babies were little and toddlers where all we did was sit on the couch and watch soap operas and cartoons. And you just have to be
And
okay.
we're fine for the most part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the most part. Yeah. I think what is hard about being a young mom and being in that position is just thinking, oh, I should be doing something. I should be being productive. And no, really what you should be is just be playing with the blocks and your little toddler on the ground. That's just fine. That's be happy with what you can do now because there's going to be a lot of years where you can do more. Just be open and be a leaf. Be open to
Yeah.
change and realize that God may have other plans for you and be open to those plans, even though they may not match the plans that you have for yourself.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Mom. Um, I will say before I let my mom go, she didn't ask me to do this, so it's a surprise, kind of. But my mom has a real estate business, so if you want to follow her on Instagram, you can. It's at Home Goals with Janice, and she's helping me and Ben buy our first house, and she's amazing. So.
Oh, thank you. That was an after empty nester bucket list item.
So even if you're not ready to buy, she shares really good tips on getting ready. So you should check her out. She's amazing, as you guys have all heard. So you can find her over there and get even more of her wisdom. Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening to this interview. When we got off the interview, or when we stopped the recording, my mom said something that I thought was really powerful that she didn't touch on during our interview. And she talked about how our regrets in life usually have something to do with the relationships we have to people. So we talked a little bit about how, she didn't regret not being able to finish school sooner necessarily. And she talked about how usually regrets come from feeling like we weren't there for somebody, or that we didn't get as much time with somebody as we wanted to. And I just thought that was a really interesting point, and maybe not true in all cases at all times, just like anything. But it made me think a lot about what I prioritize and what I can do to make sure or to try my best to live my life to the fullest. So thank you guys so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends, share it on social media. And would really love to grow the podcast and help more people make their mind a better place to live. Have an amazing week. Bye-bye.